And this lovely being came and put their hands on my feet. And I just felt like the most overwhelming love fill my heart and my whole body. It was like pure white and maybe yellow. Like, it was so beautiful. I'm 24 years old, and I was diagnosed with a whole slew of things in 2021. And I was diagnosed with POTS, mast cell activation syndrome, and neuropathy. And I was going into anaphylaxis all the time. So I would get hives all over my body, and my throat would close, and I couldn't breathe, and I'd have to give myself epinephrine. And it would happen randomly, and there was no explanation. And then slowly but surely, I was losing feeling in my hands and feet. And I could walk and stuff, but I was in incredible pain all of the time. And I wasn't sleeping, and I was stressed out all the time. I was just like in a state of panic because I was in pain so much. And I was having seizures, and I was just in and out of the hospital all of the time and having a really hard time with life. In the beginning of 2024, I had so many EpiPens from the anaphylaxis that I had a heart attack and was in the hospital. And so after that, I was like, something has to change. And so I had known of Joe's work. I am a scientist, so I had read his books, but I hadn't implemented it with all of my heart. And so I started implementing it, and then my mother and my aunties, they were like, we're going to go to an event. My other auntie is like, let's get you a coherence healing. I got the privilege, and it was just such a transformational and beautiful experience, and I am so grateful. There's 3 healings, and on the first one, it was amazing. The first 2 were amazing, but I came to a point where, I was laughing and crying and feeling the energy, but I came to a point that I realized that I was scared, and I was more scared of the unknown of being healthy than I was of the pain and the discomfort that I was feeling. And I was like, I don't know if I'm worthy of this, and I don't know if I can surrender. On the second healing, I was having a wild experience. I was lying on the ground, as you are, and I felt this being walk into the room, and I don't know how to describe it, but it was pure light and many stories tall. And it was not like anatomically, didn't make a lot of sense, but it was there. And I was laying there, and I felt a lot of light coming down on me. And all of a sudden, I knew this was a powerful being, and I was like, oh, this is serious. And I started to get afraid because I had a feeling that it was going to be an intense experience. Whatever this being was doing here, I started to get afraid. And I kind of, my mind was picking up, and I didn't really surrender to the present moment. On the third day and the final day, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give it all I got. And I was first into the ballroom. I remember this because I didn't want to be first into the ballroom. I was first into the ballroom, and I laid down, and one of the volunteers gave me some words of encouragement. And Joe didn't even talk to us, but I was like, I'm just going to be grateful for this, and I'm going to receive to the best of my abilities and make the most of this moment. And so I put my eye mask on before anyone came in the room, and I felt the doors burst open. And these light beings, many of them, marched in. And I was laying down, and as they're marching in, I can feel like animals. I grew up with a lot of animals some of them aren't here anymore. And I could feel them as clear as day behind me. And I was like, I want to get up and go and pet the horse. It was sensory. And then the being came over, and there was a big one and a small one, and I could feel, it wasn't like they talked to me, but they communicated in my mind. And all I heard was, I have to stay present and focused to this experience, no matter how uncomfortable it is. before the healers come in and before they even turn their hands to me, I began to shake. And I saw and felt, it was like I was inside of the organ, but the being took my heart out of my body, and it was, floating up above me, and pelted it with energy and light. It was so intense, and I remember feeling like propelled to escape into my brain, and I just stayed with it. And then they put my heart back into my body, and they took out my spine and all my nerves and my brain, and they were like blue and shimmery, and they pelted that with energy. And I was just, it felt like the pain that I had experienced in the past was just, it was like tenfold all over my body, like burning and tingling, and my arms are going all over the place. And I was just, it was so intense. And then that stopped, and I had a second, and then all I can only describe this as is burning. And so my whole body was lit on fire. And it was kind of a similar experience as to when I was going into anaphylaxis, but I knew that I couldn't be afraid. And I was like, I'm not afraid. And it was burning and burning. And then all of a sudden it was peace. And the being, was in my consciousness. I don't think he was speaking. I think I was in his and he was in mine. And we were one. And they said, you are healed. And without further ado, just walked off. I'm hoping to the next person. And I was lying there, completely open and raw. And this lovely being that I think was maybe Mother Mary or some sort of female loving energy came and put their hands on my feet. And I just felt like the most overwhelming love fill my heart and my whole body. It was like pure white and maybe yellow. Like, it was so beautiful. And she said, you are healed and you are not afraid. You are not afraid. And then the healing was over. And I was, vibrating with energy. And I didn't even realize until I was sitting down eating food that I could feel the ground beneath my feet for the first time in three years. I'm no longer in any pain from the neuropathy, and I have so much more. I don't even know it. I didn't realize how much that, that took up my brain space until it was gone. And I feel so grateful for every healer that was in my pod all 3 days, and just getting the chance to receive that love and being brave enough to receive it, because it was probably harder than all of the things that I've had to do.